The following video is based on an actual reported encounter. All names have been changed for privacy. Matthew and Zack were childhood friends, now grown with families of their own. Regardless of their lives going in different directions, they still took time to meet up a couple times each year. One of their favorite activities was riding their ATVs off-road. During the summer of 2000, they traveled to Ashland County, Ohio, for a day of four-wheeling adventure. A couple hours into their day, they were riding, and a huge rock landed on the trail several feet in front of them. Both coming to a stop, they looked around for whomever had thrown it. Unable to see anyone, together they rolled the rock over so they could pass. Zack took another look around and thought he saw someone duck behind a tree several feet away. He stood there watching the tree for a minute before hearing Matthew ask him if he was ready to continue. Figuring it was just his eyes, he decided to continue riding. Later, they stopped to eat sandwiches they had packed. As they laughed about old times, they suddenly heard a strange howl-type sound in the distance. They looked at each other, trying to figure out if wolves were in this area. They decided to head back to the car after they finished their break for lunch. Taking a different, longer, less traveled trail back to the car, they came across a strange structure built around a tree. Walking around it, they noticed an opening. Zack said he looked inside and was taken aback by the terrible odor inside the structure. He said it smelled like feces and wet dog. While they were examining the structure, another large rock landed near them. Both of them turned around. Seeing no one around, Zack said they both looked at each other, shaking their heads. They got back on their ATVs and drove away from the structure. About an hour later, as they were nearing a more populated area, Matthew's vehicle sputtered and died. After a few attempts, he couldn't get it to restart. They looked over the ATV and were unable to find anything mechanically wrong with it. They tried starting it a couple more times without success. When Zack checked the fuel level, it had run out of gas. They pushed his vehicle off the trail and both rode on Zack's four-wheeler the 25 to 30 minutes back to the car, grabbing the extra gas from the truck. As they approached the area they had left the ATV, there was a huge branch laying across the path they had just driven. Matthew, looking at Zack, shook his head, saying, "Unbelievable." Between the two of them, they were able to move the log enough to get through. They came up to Matthew's ATV and saw that it had been shoved up against a tree, nearly on its side, with the front tire in a hole by the tree. Matthew said, "Seriously?" He turned around yelling, "Who thinks this is funny?" Zack said they carefully turned the vehicle right side up, checking it for damage. As Matthew was putting the gas in it, he heard Zack saying, "What is that?" Putting the lid back on the ATV's gas tank, Matthew asked him what he was talking about. Looking towards a group of trees, Zack told him he thought he had seen an animal. They watched the area for a few minutes before riding off after not seeing anything out of the ordinary. Just after clearing the branch they had moved, they heard a loud roar, loud enough to hear over their engines coming from behind them. Both turning around to see what it was, they were frozen for a few seconds. There was a huge Sasquatch walking toward them. They took off, driving as fast as they could without wrecking their vehicles. Zack said they reached a short section where he could safely turn around to see where the creature was. He said the Bigfoot was standing not far from the big branch they had moved, just watching them. He turned and continued driving behind Matthew until they reached the truck. As they were loading the truck, Matthew kept watch to make sure the creature wasn't approaching them, but it was nowhere in sight. Driving home discussing the encounter, they decided this was the last trip to this area. Zack could not believe Sasquatch was actually real. He said he has always laughed at people who did believe in them. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed the video. Remember to click like if you enjoyed their story, and subscribe to our channel Dreamscape Horrors, as there's much more to come.